Hi everyone, my name is Melissa van Dijk, and in this video I want to show you what a typical day of eating looks like for me. How I eat in a way that keeps my skin clear while also genuinely enjoying every meal. And I think that a lot of you will find this approach not only helpful, but also really pleasant and easy to stick with. Now from my experience, if meals aren't enjoyable, diets become very hard to stick with. But with the way I eat, I'm sure that most of you will be able to stay consistent because it includes many of the same types of meals you might reach for when eating out, whether that's fast food, casual takeout, or dining at restaurants. The key difference is that these meals are prepared at home in a much healthier way. Now this is just one day of eating based on my core ingredients. I do switch up some vegetables and fruits depending on what's in season. But staples like potatoes are a daily part of my meals. And I've seen very good results with this setup. And the goal of this video is to show you that eating well for your skin can be simple, delicious, and totally doable at home with good ingredients. Let's start with breakfast, which I usually have around 6 to 7 a.m. I typically make 2 to 3 scrambled eggs seasoned with a bit of rock salt and cooked in a pan with a small amount of butter. I use butter because it simply works best. It gives a pleasant taste and more importantly, it supports my digestion really well. Then I add a bit of feta. Most days I heat it in the oven, but you can also just crumble it into the eggs towards the end of cooking. Still, I recommend warming it slightly as I found it makes it easier on the gut. After that, I like to add some fruit. Yes, you heard me right. I always like to include a few cherry tomatoes when they're in season. They go really well with the scrambled eggs and feta and make the whole plate feel way more refreshing. To drink, I usually have a cup of lupin coffee. These days, I've nearly transitioned completely away from regular coffee because I was concerned that it would speed up my digestion too much, which led to gut issues. Although I still drink black coffee occasionally, I never have it with meals, only in between, to avoid that effect. That's something you should definitely consider, especially if you're struggling with digestive issues like loose stools. It might not be the coffee itself, but the combination you're having it with, something you might be doing out of habit without realizing it. Then it's lunchtime. I have chicken breast paired with boiled potatoes, seasoned with a little butter and mild chili powder. It adds a gentle warmth which I really enjoy, and with a bit of feta it brings in some creaminess. On the side I have slow braised white cabbage, cooked in butter and simply seasoned with rock salt and a touch of sugar. This is then combined with a DIY sheep yogurt dip, which is honestly my go-to foods these days. Once you taste it, you won't want to miss it. Now what's important here is how you prepare the chicken. I usually pan fry it over medium heat for about 3 minutes on all sides in a bit of butter, and then put it into the oven to cook it through. But you can also simply cook it in the pan with a lid. Just make sure it's not too dark. It should be very pale looking, something like I showed in the picture. Now I bring this up because of AGEs, short for advanced glycation end products, are actually a big problem when it comes to your skin issues like breakouts. In general, you want to minimize these compounds as much as you can. Trust me, it's worth the effort. And no, it's not harmful when there's little browning, but over time that dark browning accumulates and you're constantly consuming these substances, making it unhealthy not just for your skin, but for your overall health. So reduce it whenever you can. And with the combo I show here, it's so delicious that you don't even want the browning, because most of the taste comes from the dip anyway, which also happens to be very healthy at the same time. Also, with spices and ingredients I use, like chili powder, butter or herbs, I always choose organic when possible. This is especially important with dried herbs and spices, which are often heavily treated, and it really does make a noticeable difference for both the digestion and overall skin health, especially if these ingredients become a regular part of your diet. So it's definitely something worth keeping in mind. Then it's time for lupin coffee and a little dessert. Yes, you can have dessert. There's no issue with that, as long as it's made with good ingredients. And no, the small amounts of refined sugar in this definitely isn't causing acne or breakouts. In fact, over the course of my year-long self-experiment, I haven't noticed even the slightest connection between sugar and acne. Just be cautious with sugary snacks that include nasty seed oils, dried fruits, whole wheat flour, or are made with almond, oat or other plant milks, because many of them are heavily contaminated with pesticides, heavy metals and other chemicals. That's where you really need to be careful. But something simple like a cookie or cake made with white wheat flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, butter, milk and an egg isn't harmful for your skin, and it won't cause breakouts. That said, your teeth won't love it if you go overboard, so just don't overdo it. I personally have something like this a few times a week, usually with my lupin coffee. So from a skin and breakout point of view, there's really no need to restrict it. For dinner, I have homemade burgers, and I have to admit I consume them almost daily. But I alternate between pork, beef or lamb, or sometimes mix them. I usually buy whichever minced meat is the most affordable or on sale, as long as it is still fresh. That's incredibly important. Get it as fresh as you can. Don't go for it if it looks old or has been sitting on the shelf for too long, because in that case it can quickly turn the other way around and become something that's no longer beneficial for your health or digestion. I top the burger with feta cheese, often the kind made from a mix of goat and sheep milk, but sometimes I use plain goat cheese, depending on what I have at hand. It really depends on the availability and what feels best digestion-wise. So yes, there's quite a bit of cheese in my diet, and I think this is one of the reasons my digestion has become so good, especially with middle-aged cheeses from goat and sheep. Now, if you haven't tried them before, give them a try in combinations I've shown. It's really worth it. I usually serve the burger with some potatoes and half an avocado on the side. And then I essentially dip everything. Potatoes, meat, and sometimes even the avocado into the sheep yogurt. It is so good. Avocados can sometimes cause issues. I personally tolerate wheat avocados the most, but they are not often available in my area. So if you feel like you don't tolerate avocados well digestion-wise, try different varieties. From my experience, the one that causes the most issues is the Hass avocado, which sadly is also the most common one. It's not necessarily the variety, but how it's been handled because it's so overfarmed. Often you buy it, leave it for a while, then it becomes foul or chewy, or you end up eating it unripe, which is even worse and can have some very unpleasant side effects. Now, I'm not sure what causes this exactly, but I think it was picked too unripe. I never had this issue with freshly picked ones. So keep that in mind if you're experiencing any intolerances. Don't give up, just test other types or change the supplier. And for drink, I usually have a glass of water with this meal as well, depending on how thirsty I feel, and I don't usually drink it all at once with the meal, but rather sip on it slowly throughout the evening. That said, it really depends on the day or the kind of activity I have later, so I adjust it based on that. Later in the evening, I usually have another cup of lupin coffee, this time on its own without any food. It's become part of my evening wind down routine and feels much gentler on my system compared to regular coffee. Now I find it helps satisfy any late cravings while still keeping my digestion calm before bed. So if you're used to snacking late at night, switching to a warm drink like this can make a big difference. Just don't have it too close to bedtime or drink too much unless you want to be up all night running to the bathroom. That's about it for the food. However, there's still something important to mention. You may have noticed the timing of my meals. Of course, you can't always follow the exact schedule every day, but what I found is that it makes a huge difference both for skin and for weight. For example, when I eat breakfast at 6 a.m. and finish dinner by 5 p.m. the latest, I do not only feel better, but my weight stays more stable or even goes down compared to when I eat later. My sleep is also much better. While 1 hour doesn't make a big difference, a few hours absolutely do. And that then affects your whole system. So my suggestion would be, if you can, control your meal times. Keep an eye on them. It's a bit of an adjustment at first, but it's worth it, and over time it just feels normal to shift your eating habits earlier. And that's where I'll wrap it up. I hope you learned something new and saw that cooking for acne-free skin doesn't have to involve tons of foods you don't enjoy. It can be done with pleasant, satisfying meals. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.